welcome back. It's been dubbed housing market mayhem since the Chancellor's mini budget. Interest rates have soared. You probably don't need me to tell you that. Banks withdrew mortgage deals. You know all about that. And overall, the cost of borrowing surged, leaving millions of homeowners and potential buyers mired in uncertainty. And it seems as if the turmoil is set to continue, as today, the boss of Santander revealed there's been a rise in people defaulting on their mortgage payments. Maybe that doesn't surprise you in the least. And overall, rates are rising faster than during the financial crisis. Luckily, though, help is at hand. We have our property panel of experts here with us to answer all your questions and try to make some sense of the mayhem. So get in touch if you're worried, if your fixed rate is running out, if you're not sure whether to buy, to sell, and if you're renting and you really are in trouble. I know lots of people looking for rental properties, certainly down here in London. They can't get a hold of them and there's such a run on them. So if you're worrying about property in any shape or form, even if you're a landlord and you don't see the future clearly, give us a call, you know what the number is, and see whether our experts can sort you out. Joining me are independent property expert and consultant Ed Mead. He's joining me from Dorset. Hello, Ed.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hello there. There's a mortgage expert, Andrew Montlake, who's in Hertfordshire. Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
And there's Stephen Rawson, CEO of Beyond Housing, all the way from Darlington. Hello, Stephen.
Hello there.
OK, so let's start at the very beginning with my very first guest there. And let's talk about what's going on in terms of mortgages and mortgages being withdrawn, offers being taken off the table, obviously interest rates going up, fixed rates coming to an end for many people, and what the hell they're supposed to do about it. Is there any advice or help that you can give?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of advice. The first obvious one is speak to an independent broker who can help you through this. It's very, very difficult for people because what we're seeing is because as a consequence of the Chancellor's mini budget, the markets have gone a little bit crazy. So, well, they've gone very crazy, to be fair. And this has had a massive effect on mortgages themselves. So we've seen big swings in mortgage rates. So they've gone up from before this. You could have got a 2-year fixed rate of just under 4%. But now you're looking at 2-year fixed rates of just under 6%. So that's a big swing. And for the average household, if you've got a £300,000 loan, for example, and you might be coming off a 5-year fixed rate of around about 1.5%, you're now faced with a rise in those payments of about £500, £600, or even £1,000 a month, which is such a big thing. The good news is that we are starting to see lenders come back to the market again. We're starting to see a bit more choice coming back. But it is very difficult for people to budget accordingly in the face of this. Plus, you've got the energy price rises. And this means that some people have lost their borrowing capacity because lenders take into account your affordability generally. And all of this together means that some people can borrow a little bit less. The good news is that lenders do have what's known as retention rates. So if you're coming off your mortgage and you're worried that you're not going to be able to get a mortgage somewhere else, don't worry, you will be able to with your existing lender. But it's about going through your budget again in the new world and trying to work out where you can possibly save that money to enable you to afford to pay that additional cost on your mortgage.
Andrew, I want to stick with you for a minute because I want to talk about what the CEO of Santander said today, and that is people defaulting on their mortgages. Now, there'll be people listening and watching who don't remember this historically. They've never seen it happen before. They may not understand what it means, and they may be labouring under the delusion that if you can't make your mortgage payments, you just hand back the key and walk away and that's it, done and dusted. And if that's what they think, I feel very sorry for them because I'm going to need you to explain what really does happen. If you really can't make the payments on your mortgage, you don't just get to walk away by giving back the key to your property, unfortunately, do you?
No, absolutely. And it's very difficult. The good news, again, is that lenders are in a very different place from where they were several years ago. So they will do everything in their power to help you keep your property. And these are abnormal times, so we wouldn't normally advise some of these things. But for example, you could switch from a repayment to an interest-only loan, which brings your payments down for a period of time. You could extend the term again. From if you've got a 20-year mortgage, you could potentially take that to 30, 35 years, dependent on your age. And again, that brings your payments down. And lenders do still have the power to grant so-called payment holidays. Now, they're not holidays, they're deferred payments. Again, these are short-term solutions. But if you have a mortgage, you can't really just hand the keys back. It's far better to try and actually sell your property, which a lot of people are facing into. We've had a couple of people having to do that. So they're selling their property and they're moving into rented, again, just for a period where they can actually get their lives back on track. I mean,
it's very tough. You know, if Santander is saying that and you're saying that you've seen people brought to that level where they really can't make the payments and they're having to move into rented, then you realise that this is really tough and people are absolutely up against it. And I don't, of course, forget that there are plenty of people watching and listening who've never even had a toehold on the property ladder at all. They've never gone anywhere near owning a property. So for them, it's a distant dream and fantasy. For other people, it's turning into, I reckon, when you get to the stage where you have to sell your home because you can't make your mortgage payments, you're beginning to see the beginning of a vestige of a nightmare. So it's really, really tough. Now, we've got a caller, and I think what I'd really like is for Ed Mead to listen carefully to this and step in for Carol. Carol, thanks very much for calling this afternoon. Tell me what's going on with you, my love.
Okay, we absolutely love living where we've lived.
Yeah.
It's a 3-bedroom, quite a big house in Pagham, which is near Bognor Regis, Chichester. And to be honest, I'm 74, my husband's 78. He is more active than me. We've got a big garden. We cannot possibly cope with the increase I'm putting timers on just to heat the place up for 20 minutes a day. We decided, okay, we've got to move.
Right.
We don't want to. We're going to try and downsize. We put it on the market. It's been on the market for 7 weeks. Mm-hmm. The estate agent is now saying it's about time to drop it. He told us the price. We thought it was overpriced. All I want to know is, should we hang on? Because we haven't got a mortgage. No, we're in a better position. These poor people that want to buy. I agree. But we're also in a situation where we've got no spare cash. Any money we had saved is going, and very soon gone.
Right. Okay. Let's ask Ed what he thinks about this. Ed, I mean, it's difficult without seeing the house. I get it, but obviously it's a beautifully placed house in a gorgeous location. They've been very happy there. It's costing a hell of a lot to heat. The garden needs a lot of maintenance. And Carol just wants to know, is this the right time to try to sell? She hasn't managed to sell in 7 weeks. Does she drop the price?
I would have thought the answer to that is probably yes. I mean, we got to remember, of course, that when you're in a market like this, whether you're downsizing or upsizing, and of course, if you're upsizing, it is a good time to be selling and buying, because if you think you're losing 25 grand on your sale and you're gaining £50,000 on your purchase because prices have come down a bit, then that could be a good thing. But from this lady's point of view, from Carol's point of view, I think it sounds like what's happening is just a little bit overawing at the moment, and therefore a downsize would probably be a good idea. Listen to the agent. I'm assuming that she's also checked what she can go and buy is also coming down a little bit, or proving not so easy to acquire. So from that perspective, it swings and roundabouts. So yes, I think it sounds to me like, to make her life easier, it would make sense to drop the price, as the agent says, and get on with it.
Let me ask Carol, have you found somewhere to move to? Are there suitable properties that you've seen?
Vanessa, on purpose, we tried 2 years ago and COVID came up. Uh-huh. This particular time, we took the sensible view. I don't want to find anything. It's got to be a very 2-bedroom bungalow, etc., etc. We found some somewhere, then COVID came up, so we had to stop selling, etc. I didn't want, and we were advised as well, do not look for anything until you find or till you
Good
sell
advice.
your property.
You like that advice? I like that advice too, because it avoids the broken heart side of life where you fall in love with somewhere and you can't buy it. That's awful.
Exactly.
So that's probably the right thing. But Ed thinks drop the price according to your agent's advice and then sell it and then see if you can
just
find someone
add,
else.
Vanessa?
Yes, of
can
course.
I just add to that? But I think trying to call your sale or purchase of a property based on what you think is going to happen to the market is always a very, very dangerous game. Base what you do with your property on what your life needs are. You can then come to talk about mortgage costs or moving costs, but that's what you've got to base your decision for buying and selling on, not trying to call the market. That's a mug's game.
Ed, thank you very much indeed. I think we've got Mike on the line. Is he up on the line? Mike, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Hello, Mike. What's your story? What do you need to know, my love?
Basically, we're not far from completing on a property at the moment. We're not in a chain, and obviously the market's dropping. Is
Right.
it going to be worth going in to say, look, the market's dropped and change your price, what you're going to pay for the place?
Oh, so you want, having agreed the price and having agreed to pay it, you fancy going in at the last minute and saying, hang on, the market's dropping, I don't want to pay the money. Well, you won't be the first person to do that, but I wonder whether there's a single member of my panel here who would dream of telling you that's an okay thing to do. Let's talk to Steve Rawson. I mean, Steve, you know, you can see the temptation to do that because the last thing you want is to overpay, but on the other hand, he's agreed.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of honour in terms of honouring the contract, in terms of what you've agreed to go forward. And I think in terms of the person you're agreeing it with, that there's a price been agreed. I mean, you can always try it, see what response you get. But actually, I think once you've agreed a price, that's what you should be sticking to.
I may have to go to my other guests too, see if they're all as honourable as Steve Rawson is, and I'm sure they are, especially on the telly and the radio. Andrew, you know, to say at the last minute, look, prices are coming down. I know I said I'd pay X. I want to pay X minus Y. Can I?
You can, but I'm a big believer in, I totally agree that once you've agreed a price, you should stick to it. And the interesting thing there is it could cause some problems that you haven't thought of by changing the price. Because if there's a chain involved and you do change the price...
There's no chain involved.
Okay, then, yeah, so if someone's purchasing your property with a mortgage, then it could cause an issue. But yeah, I'd always stick to the price you agree.
Ed, I reckon you're going to say the same thing, aren't you?
Well, funny enough, I'm not actually, because
come on then.
I'm only because I'm looking at it from this gentleman's point of view, and from this gentleman's point of view.
Thank you very much. I'm glad someone's on my side.
Yeah. So he's asking us for advice. We're not acting for the seller here. We're acting for him. So
Yes.
that's if that's what it takes. Try it on. It won't happen often, I can assure you.
And I've experienced it where you've agreed a price and suddenly the person you're buying the property from puts on a few grand at the last minute. I've had that happen to me, I think, on a couple of occasions, actually. So it can happen in both directions. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, but you might want to chance your arm. Let me talk to you, though, about the rental market. Certainly, I don't know whether it's particularly inflamed here in the capital or if it's the same all over the country, but people who are renting are saying that they're getting priced out of the market. They don't even get a chance to put a foot through the door when they're going to look at a new rental property, because they've already been outbid by somebody else who's offered more money than they've been asked. And, you know, they say that it's an incredibly precarious way of living. They can throw you out with, 10 months notice for no reason at all. The government said in its manifesto it would get rid of no-fault evicting tenants, but they're not going to. It's never been a tougher time, I'm being told, for people renting. So let's ask Steve Rawson about this. Steve, is it a really rough ride out there for renters?
I think it is, but there's obviously a difference between the private rented sector and the social rented sector. Beyond housing, you know, we're a social landlord in the northeast of England with 15,000 homes. But the private sector, I think, all over is really difficult. I think it's difficult for people trying to get on the ladder. But with the increase in mortgage rates and increase in costs, I think it's difficult for landlords as well, particularly accidental landlords who have a property, have a mortgage on it, they're seeing their costs go up. It's really difficult to make that balance between looking after your tenants and looking after your own personal finances. Obviously, in social renting, it's a different world in terms of how we work. You know, social landlords don't use no blame evictions. We evictors are very, very last and only final option. Beyond housing, we pride ourselves on that. So I think it's a different world in social housing. It's the private rented.
Okay. Well, let me ask each of you for just a bit of advice, because obviously this really is a tough time to navigate. People don't know whether to sell. They don't know whether to buy. They don't know what to do about finding somewhere decent to rent. It really is a rough time. So let's just start with you, Ed. Ed Mead, any advice that you would give, anything you're telling family members, people you actually love and know and care about, that you could share with us, I'm wondering?
Yep. Yeah, I can. My daughter is in exactly that boat at the moment, saying, what should I do? Should I wait? I said exactly what I said before. It's a mug's game, trying to wait for values to drop, go up, or whatever it is. It's always the same thing. If you're buying a property, ever since the Mortgage Market Review, and I've done so much of this with Monty in the past, it's absolutely cast iron. Stress test yourself. If you're getting a mortgage now, you will be stress tested to 3% above what your existing mortgage is going to be to make sure you can pay it. So make sure you can pay your mortgage if it's going to go to back to normal rates. And bear in mind, the rates we're talking about are normal historically. We've got a generation who's been used to interest rates at 1%, 2%, whatever it is in terms of mortgage rates. That's not normal. What we're going to now is a historical norm. So make sure you can afford the mortgage. And two, make sure if you're buying a place, you can live in it for probably 10 years. The day of the one-bedroom flat is gone. You want to buy a place you can get married in, have kids in, and all that sort of thing. So that's the advice I'd give. Make sure you can afford the mortgage if it goes up to normal rates, and make sure you can live in the place for 10 years.
Andrew Monday, what would you say? What's your precious pearl of wisdom that you could share with us today?
Well, me and Ed share the same view on this. It's really difficult to try and play the market. We say to everyone, don't try and do that. When I bought this house, I bought it in 2007. I thought I was crazy. I thought it was the top of the market. I thought rates were high. And it was extraordinary to see what has happened to property prices. As we went into the pandemic, a lot of people thought that prices would fall. They didn't. So we always say to people, buy when it is suitable for you to do so. And absolutely, as a mortgage broker, we work really hard with people to make sure they can afford it, not just now, but also through the twists and turns that their life brings. So can they afford it in the future? Can they afford it when rates go up? And yeah, property is not a short-term investment. It's a long-term home. And that's what people should remember.
Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen all. It's been very interesting, but also very unnerving talking to you at this completely sort of chaotic time in the property market. Thank you very much indeed.